Shedeur Sanders walked into Week 2 OTAs at the Cleveland Browns facility in Berea, Ohio, and delivered exactly what his doubters have been insisting he cannot do, and the most frustrating part is that people are still finding ways to minimize it. The throws are on tape. The coaches are saying it at the podium with cameras rolling. The field assignments are telling the whole story without anyone having to say a word. And yet, somehow, the narrative around this quarterback continues to be shaped by people who decided what they believed about him long before he ever put on a Browns uniform. That ends today. We are going through everything that happened on that practice field, every coaching staff signal, every double standard being applied to this quarterback, and every reason why June 9th mandatory minicamp is about to become the most watched quarterback evaluation in the entire NFL. Before getting into the throws and the touchdowns, the setup of Week 2 OTAs itself communicates something that every serious football observer needs to understand. This was the second open-to-media OTA session of the 2026 offseason, held at the Cleveland Browns practice facility in Berea, and the way the coaching staff organized their fields is not a small detail, it is the whole story. Shedeur Sanders was on Field 1. With the starters. Working alongside Dillon Gabriel in the early individual periods. Deshaun Watson and rookie Talon Green were on the other field, working with the second team and younger players. In NFL OTA culture, coaching staffs do not accidentally group players together. Every single field assignment, every rep distribution, every drill partner is a deliberate decision made by the coaching staff. When an offensive coordinator decides who works with whom and where, that is the organization communicating, to the locker room, to the media, to everyone watching, exactly where things stand on the depth chart. The field assignments during Week 2 OTAs placed Shedeur Sanders on Field 1 with the starters, while Deshaun Watson worked on the second field with backup-level players and rookies. That is not a coincidence. That is not a rotation. That is a statement. Shedeur Sanders is not being developed in the background. He is not the insurance policy. He is competing at the very top of this depth chart, and the Cleveland Browns are treating him exactly that way. Compared to Week 1, the groupings shifted noticeably, and that shift carries real meaning that every person covering this team has acknowledged. Now get into the actual football, because the throws are the whole point of why we are here. Shedeur Sanders worked through both 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 drills during his reps on Wednesday, and he was sharp from the very beginning of practice. Not serviceable, sharp. The kind of decisiveness that does not come from talent alone, but from a player who has spent an entire offseason buried in the film room and on the practice field preparing for exactly this competition. One of the most consistent criticisms leveled at young quarterbacks transitioning from spread college offenses to the professional level is the freeze moment, the point where the pre-snap read does not match what the defense presents post-snap, and the quarterback hesitates instead of processing. During 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 drills in Week 2 OTAs, Sanders moved through his reads, made decisions, and delivered the football without hesitation. That freeze was not present in Shedeur Sanders' game on Wednesday. He went through his progressions methodically. He made his decisions quickly. He delivered the football accurately. When his reps came in critical moments and his receivers held on, he put the ball in the end zone. That is the job description at the professional level. That is what you are supposed to do when you are fighting for a starting position in the NFL and the cameras are rolling on an open-to-media practice day. Every single rep at this stage of the offseason carries outsized weight precisely because there is no contact, no crowd noise, no game-day pressure distorting the evaluation. It is just the quarterback, his reads, his decision-making, and the throws he makes with the football. Shedeur Sanders made good decisions on Wednesday and made the throws consistently. Those are facts that were witnessed by reporters, posted on camera, and acknowledged by the coaching staff afterward. They deserve to be treated as facts, not minimized because they complicate a narrative that was already written before this offseason began. Here is where we slow down and address something directly, because it cannot be glossed over. Some of Shedeur's deep shots did not connect during Wednesday's session. Balls went up, balls came down, and receivers could not bring them in. Within hours of practice ending, those incompletions were being circulated online with the clear implication that Sanders was the problem. Let us be precise about what actually happened on that same field on that same day. Deshaun Watson dealt with the exact same issue. His deep shots were also being dropped by receivers during the same session. This is early June OTA football, conducted without pads, with teams still developing timing and chemistry following an extended offseason. Drops happen to every quarterback's receivers at this point in the calendar. That is a fundamental, well-documented truth about how early OTA sessions work across the entire league. But here is what does not happen equally across the league. When Watson's deep ball gets dropped, no one is posting threads questioning his arm talent or his accuracy or his ball placement. When Shedeur's receiver cannot bring in a catchable ball, it immediately becomes evidence of a mechanical flaw, a leadership problem, or something else people have already decided they believe about this particular quarterback. That double standard has followed Shedeur Sanders from Boulder, Colorado, to Berea, Ohio, and it remained fully operational in the hours following Wednesday's open practice. It existed during his time at Colorado. It existed during the 2025 NFL draft evaluation process. It is alive right now in the comment sections and on the timelines of people covering a practice that will not appear in any official NFL statistical record. The specific play that generated the most online reaction was a clip the Browns posted from practice, Sanders throwing to wide receiver Casey Concepcion in the end zone. The ball glanced off Concepcion's hands. Running back Amari Marshall stayed alert, caught the deflection, and the play ended as a touchdown. The play worked. The offense scored. But the comment section split immediately and predictably, with half the reactions questioning Sanders' ball placement and the other half targeting Concepcion, who arrived in Cleveland already carrying a documented reputation for drops throughout his college career. The football landed in the end zone and the play resulted in a score, meaning Sanders completed his assignment on the play regardless of the initial contact situation at the receiver position. What happens after the ball leaves the quarterback's hand belongs to the receiver. That is not opinion, that is how quarterback play is evaluated at the professional level by every credible analyst in the game. And yet Shedeur Sanders continues to absorb responsibility for outcomes that occur after the ball is released, the same way he did at Colorado and the same way he did during the 2025 draft process when evaluators were constructing reasons to justify a slide that the numbers and the film never supported. Offensive coordinator Travis Switzer was asked directly by reporters following practice, who is ahead in the quarterback competition right now? His answer was precise, deliberate, and revealing to anyone paying close attention. I don't know that anyone is ahead, Switzer said, adding that the team is pleased with both players' progress and that everyone is doing a nice job working through the off-season program. In NFL coaching language, I don't know that anyone is ahead in a two-man quarterback competition signals a genuinely open evaluation with no established frontrunner, not a polite way of protecting an incumbent starter's feelings. If Watson were clearly the starting quarterback heading into the 2026 season, Switzer would be delivering answers like, Deshaun is our starter and Shedeur is pushing him to be his best. That is the standard coaching language for a competition with a clear leader. Switzer did not say that. He said he does not know who is ahead. A quarterback owed $46 million fully guaranteed for the 2026 season cannot be definitively named the leader in the quarterback room by his own offensive coordinator after 2 weeks of OTA sessions. Consider what that tells you about what Shedeur Sanders is doing every single day he walks between those lines in Berea. Head coach Ken Dorsey has been equally direct and arguably more emphatic in his public assessment of Sanders' development since the start of the off-season program. Dorsey described Sanders as having come miles in terms of his progressions, his efficiency getting the ball out of his hand, and his overall grasp of what the offensive system demands from the quarterback position. This kid has really come a long way, Dorsey said publicly to reporters, a professional evaluation delivered on camera, not an internal statement designed to manage a backup's confidence heading into a difficult week. When a head coach uses the word miles to describe a quarterback's development and delivers that assessment publicly in front of cameras and recorders, he means every syllable of it. That is not coach speak. That is a real football evaluation from the person whose job security depends on making correct evaluations of his own players. The work Shedeur Sanders put in between December 2025 and June 2026 shows up visibly every time he takes a snap, and the head coach is saying so out loud. Switzer also specifically noted that building familiarity between quarterbacks and receivers is the central priority during this phase of the off-season program. That context matters directly when evaluating every drop that occurred on Wednesday. Timing routes, back shoulder throws, touch passes into tight windows, all of that requires chemistry that is built through repetition and shared experience, not talent alone. The drops in Week 2 OTAs are partly a symptom of an ongoing development process that every quarterback-receiver partnership on every roster in the NFL is working through simultaneously. They are not a verdict on Shedeur Sanders' ability to place the football. No honest conversation about this quarterback competition functions without confronting the financial reality sitting at the center of it. Deshaun Watson is owed $46 million in fully guaranteed base salary for the 2026 NFL season. That is not a number the Cleveland Browns front office can walk away from without consequences that extend far beyond a depth chart decision. That contract is a financial anchor that shapes every single evaluation the organization conducts at the quarterback position, whether anyone in the building admits it publicly or not. If the Browns bench Watson before Week 1 of the 2026 season, they absorb one of the largest dead cap penalties in NFL history while simultaneously handing the starting role to a fifth-round pick from the 2025 draft. That is a difficult proposition to sell to ownership. That is a difficult proposition to sell to a fan base that has already been through years of instability and turbulence at the most important position in professional football. The financial reality means Watson remains the frontrunner in terms of organizational inertia and contract obligations. That is the honest truth, and pretending otherwise does not serve anyone trying to understand how this competition actually unfolds. But here is the other side of that financial equation: the offensive coordinator cannot say Watson is clearly ahead. The head coach is publicly describing Sanders' development in the most positive terms available to him. First-team reps are being split in ways that were not happening earlier in the offseason. Mandatory minicamp has not even begun. The financial pressure created by Watson's guaranteed contract does not eliminate what Sanders is demonstrating on the practice field every day, and if he continues to force the issue, that contract conversation becomes significantly more complicated for Cleveland's front office. The pressure of the contract does not disappear. Neither does the tape of what Shedeur Sanders is doing every day he laces up and walks onto that practice field. To fully understand why Week 2 OTAs carry the weight they do for Shedeur Sanders, you have to go back to where his professional journey actually started. At Colorado, he was the most accurate and most productive quarterback in college football by the metrics the NFL claims to prioritize. The completion percentages were elite. The touchdown-to-interception ratios were exceptional. The production against competitive opposition was documented on tape that every team in the league had full access to evaluate. By every standard measure the NFL uses to assess quarterback prospects, Shedeur Sanders checked the boxes required of a franchise quarterback. The 2025 NFL Draft saw 144 picks made before the Cleveland Browns selected Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round, making him one of the most dramatically slid quarterback prospects in recent draft history relative to his statistical profile. 144 picks. The explanations that circulated through league circles during that draft slide were extraordinary in their creativity. Concerns about his attitude. Questions about his coachability. Suggestions that playing within his father Deion Sanders' program at Colorado somehow artificially inflated statistics that were visible on tape for anyone willing to watch the actual film. All of it conveniently constructed to explain why a player with those numbers, that completion percentage, and that performance history fell to a position on the draft board where most quarterbacks never receive a genuine opportunity to compete. Cleveland gave him that opportunity. And in 2025, he took it. His rookie season stat line, 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, does not fully capture what he demonstrated on the field during those opportunities. He entered games midway through for injured starters and did not flinch under pressure. He returned the following week and threw his first career touchdown pass, a 66-yard strike that had the Browns sideline erupting. By December, he delivered a 364-yard, 3-touchdown, 1 rushing score performance against the Tennessee Titans, one of the statistically strongest individual games produced by any rookie quarterback anywhere in the league during the 2025 NFL season. In a marquee December matchup, Sanders outperformed Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, on a nationally visible stage as a 5th-round selection. A 5th-round pick outperforming the 1st overall pick in a significant late-season game. That is not a small footnote in this story. That is the defining data point that makes everything happening in Berea right now make complete sense. Mandatory minicamp opens June 9th at the Cleveland Browns facility in Berea, and unlike OTA sessions, where veteran players can opt out without financial penalty, minicamp attendance is required across the board. Every quarterback will be there. Every throw will be evaluated. Every rep will be watched by a coaching staff that will use what they see to make one of the most consequential roster decisions the Cleveland Browns organization has faced in years. For the first time this offseason, Shedeur Sanders will be evaluated against the complete picture of what this roster looks like with every player present and accountable. Mandatory minicamp on June 9 represents the first evaluation point of the 2026 offseason where no player can opt out, meaning the quarterback competition will be assessed against a full roster for the first time. That is when the picture will start to sharpen significantly. The receiver timing will tighten. The chemistry that Switzer identified as a priority will accumulate. The coaching staff will have a far clearer view of which quarterback gives this team the best chance to compete when the 2026 regular season opens in September. Shedeur Sanders enters that week with the momentum of a coaching staff singing his praises publicly, first-team reps already established through 2 weeks of OTA sessions, and a chip on his shoulder that began growing the moment pick 144 was announced and has not stopped growing since. He is not being handed anything in Cleveland. He is not being protected by the organization or given an artificial path to the starting position. But the Browns are putting him in position to take the job, and based on everything that came out of Week 2 OTAs, Shedeur Sanders is prepared to do exactly that when the opportunity arrives. The arm is ready. The processing is ready. The preparation is documented by the people responsible for evaluating it every day. The only remaining question is whether the receivers around him will provide the support he needs when the games that actually count begin. This community does not sleep on the real stories in the NFL, and this is the realest story the league has right now. Drop your answers in the comments section immediately, because every single comment gets read. Do you believe Shedeur Sanders wins the starting job in Cleveland before Week 1, or does that $46 million guaranteed salary make it structurally impossible for the front office to go in any other direction regardless of what happens on the practice field between now and the end of preseason? What about the receiving core? Is the group of receivers around Shedeur talented enough to give him a legitimate chance to succeed at the professional level, or is the supporting cast going to be the limiting factor no matter how accurately he delivers the football? And for the people who have followed Shedeur Sanders since his time at Colorado, does what you saw during Week 2 OTAs match where you expected him to be at this stage of his professional development? For the skeptics still in the comments, still arguing the draft slide was fully justified, still claiming the only reason he is in Cleveland is his last name, one question deserves a direct answer: what does Shedeur Sanders actually have to do to earn your acknowledgement? Because the answer to that question carries more information about the person asking it than it does about the quarterback. Hit the like button right now if you believe Shedeur Sanders is going to be the Cleveland Browns starter when Week 1 of the 2026 NFL season kicks off. And if you are not subscribed yet and you want to be here for every development, every rep breakdown, and every coaching staff signal as mandatory minicamp approaches on June 9th, subscribe right now. Every piece of news gets covered here, and it gets covered honestly. Shedeur Sanders never asked for anything to be handed to him. He is just asking for the ball, and he keeps making the most of it every time he gets it.